This is Gemara Eruvin Daf Sadi Dalid. Tonight's learning should be as chos for Shlema of Yudemir ben Yakir, many of them Vechaim ben Sar Shalom Sibin Ezid Dosar Baskin ben Tzim Chaysar Sechem Saresi Yosel Memindol. Eliz the President Shavalei Shalom Bas Navi Shavim Shir Khan Valdavini 3 with the Numan Khan Rizal. The Buri Bas Tvia Musa Besok Shechali Yisrael. Again, just one last reminder: if you ever have any issues with any of the shirim, they are all on both their anytime YouTube and on the podcast platform. If anyone wants to reach out to Oldaf, I was in touch with them, but either way, you could find it in those platforms. We pick it up on the bottom of Sadi Gimel Amid Beis. We're in the middle of discussing a concept, Kivun Shahotra. We said yesterday, we ended off, that if when Shabbos began, you have your Eruv, Shabbos, it continues throughout the entire Shabbos. Even if afterwards the door is closed up, the window falls in, you had your Eruv when Shabbos began, it continues. So Itmar says, the Gemara, 2 lines before the bottom, Sadi Gimel Amid Beis, Koisel Shabin Shtei Chatziris. We have a wall between 2 Chatziris Shenafal, and the wall fell. Rav Amar Ein Mitazmo El Dalet Hamis. You're only allowed to carry 4 amos. Ushmol Amar comes along Shmuel and he says, Zemital ad Ikr Mechitza, moving along to Sadi Dalam and Aleph. This one can carry until the base of the Mechitza of Zemital ad Ikr Mechitza. So this is a question. Basically, what we see here, let's just move back for one moment to Sadi Gimel and Beis. Let's see this last Rashi. The Rav said, boy Elo be'arba. What's the reason? Because you lost your wall, Rashi says. Rav Leslie Hoil Hotra. Rav says, we don't hold of Hotra. Shabbos began, you lost your wall. That's it. You can't carry anymore. The Kaim Lon Chatzlo Yerva Divrei Kol Metaltin Kadishav Sabavira. That Kula Chad Rishusai. Avlahachat Beis Rishuyais. And therefore, again, says Rav, and the reason is, just without getting too deep, but Rashi ends off here and says, V'Rav l'taimei, Ta'amar halacha k'Rav Shimon, v'hu shaloi irva, aval irvu shtei rishiyosem. Rav was of the opinion that he learned from Rav Shimon. Just a quick reminder, we had Machlekes Rav versus Rav Yochanan and Shmuel, whether Rav Shimon's din that allows you to carry from Chatzar to Chatzar applies even when you made an Eruv. Rav says it does not, and therefore in this case, says Rav, that when the wall falls, and now you no longer have your wall between your Chatzeros, says Rav, what do? You are now limited to only carrying 4 amos. Shmuel, on the other hand, now we go back to Sadi Dalam and Aleph. What is the opinion of Shmuel? Says Shmuel, Zem metaltal ikar mechitza, Zem metaltal ikar mechitza, as Rashi points out in the top line, Kidmei Kara, Ta'amrina, Nahayal, Hotra. Again, Shmuel's of the opinion, like we started off today, Shabbos began, Shabbos continues, you're allowed to carry. Says the Gemara, and this din of Rav, that Rav taught us that you do not say Hotra. You do not say when Shabbos begins and continues. Rav did not say explicitly, Ela Michlal Itmar. We inferred it. The Rav Shmuel have a Yasi Ba'u Chatzar. Rav and Shmuel were sitting in a Chatzar Nafal Guda. The Beni, and the wall falls down in the Chatzar. Seemingly they lost their wall, they lost their Rishas. Amrlu Shmuel. Shmuel says, Shkula Glima Nagudiba. Shmuel says, quickly take your talis, take your cloak, and hang it up. Create some sort of partition over here. Ajina Rav Lape. Rav's not happy. Rav turns away his face. Shmuel. So Shmuel says, Kabid Abba. Oh, you're being makbid. You're not happy with what just happened. Shkula himne v'katzerbe. Take off your belt and you tie it. Again, exactly the give and change over here. Rashi doesn't fully tell us. Rashi just says that step number 1 was Shmuel said, hang up a talis. Shmuel, so Rav is not happy. So he says, you're not happy? Take off your belt. The way the Mefarshim here explain is because Shmuel seemingly was saying to Rav, you don't think that's a good mechitza talis? Okay, I'll tie it on tight. Says the Gemara, Ule Shmuel, according to Shmuel, Lamaliha. According to Shmuel, why do you have to put a mechitza? We just learned a second ago. What does Shmuel hold? Shmuel holds kivan de hutar. Hutra. Once Shabbos begins, it continues. So who cares that the wall falls down? Why is Shmuel busy making makeshift walls? Says the Gemara, Shmuel alma. You're right. Shmuel didn't make this halachic. Shmuel made this for privacy reasonings. Rav says the Gemara, and Rav was arguing because Rav doesn't hold of hutra. So Rav holds when the wall falls down, you lost your mechitza. Says the Gemara, Isfirle Daser. If Rav held it was Aser, seemingly not that it was Aser to carry. Seemingly that it was Aser to carry, so much so, Rav held you can't even create the mechitza. You can't put up the talis over there. Lamalei. Why didn't Rav say something? What's going on over here? Rav sees him doing it, turns away. He said, why doesn't Rav say it's Aser? You can't pick up your talis. Says the Gemara, Asri de Shmuel have. It was a place of Shmuel, like we learned many blot ago, that when you're in someone else's town, he's the Rav, you're not the Rav. Rav couldn't Asking. Says the Gemara, 1 second. Yochi, my time had lapis. Why did Rav turn away his face? Says the Gemara, Rav didn't want that people think he agrees to Shmuel, and therefore he showed his displeasure, but he wasn't able to paskin differently. We see from here a little bit, sometimes you have to argue, but you can't argue, so you have to just at least show that you don't agree. We know in Hilchos Lashon Hara we have such a concept. You have to at least show that you have your displeasure. That's what Rav was doing over here. And again, the basic machlekes is whether we see that once Shabbos begins, the hetzer continues. That's the opinion of Shmuel. Rav disagrees with that premise, and in this case, Rav was arguing, and therefore he said, you don't have your mechitza, you can't carry the talis, and that's why he showed his displeasure. Let's move on to the next Mishnah. Says the Mishnah, Chatzar shenifr salar Rishus Harabim. We have a chatzar that is busted open to Rishus Harabim. Ha'machnes mitaychel Rishus Yachid. If you carry from that chatzar, which just lost his wall, we'll show a picture in a moment, to Rishus Yachid, oy mir Rishus Yachid l'teichel, or you carry from Rishus Yachid into that chatzar, chayiv divi Rav Eliezer. Rav Eliezer learns iser deoraisa. If you carry from that chatzar to the street, Potter. Why? Says Rav Eliezer, because it's like a karmelis. It's not a rishos deoraisa. Here you see in front of you, you see the picture that the chatzar is nifra salar Rishus Harabim. You see you have a chatzar, 2 houses inside one little nice chatzar. You see over here the bricks on the floor. The wall falls down. What do you see right now? So said the first opinion, that area now is a din of Rishus Harabim. You carry from there, you're chayiv iser deoraisa. Said the second opinion, it has the din of a rishos, that it's a karmelis, and therefore you're not chayiv. Again, the Chachamim said, if you carry from that area to Rishus Harabim, it's only an iser derabanan. The first opinion, Rav Eliezer said that if you carry from it mitoicha li Rishus Hayachid into the house, it's an iser deraisa. So again, there's a little bit of like they're not sort of talking each other, which tomorrow at some level we'll address. Don't know if we'll have time to go into it, but basically the machlekes here is when this wall falls, what is the status now of this chatzar? Says the Gemara, Rav Eliezer, Mishum de Nifr to Rishus Harabim, Avli Rishus Harabim. It sounds like according to Rav Eliezer, what's the halacha? According to Rav Eliezer, this area has the din of Rishus Harabim. So if you carry from this area into your house, you're chayiv iser deraisa. Says the Gemara, I don't understand. Because this wall falls, all of a sudden the chatzar gets a din of Rishus Harabim. How is that possible? Says the Gemara, that is true. Rav Eliezer l'taimei, the first answer says, the Tanya Rav Yehuda Aimer. Says Rav Yehuda Mishum Rav Eliezer, Rabbi Mishebaru derech la'atzvam. If the rabbim, if the public, the multitudes chose a road for themselves, they decided they're walking through this person's chatzar, Masha baru. That which they chose is they chose. If all of a sudden one day there's a backyard, and the next day they divert traffic through there and that becomes a street, din of Rishus Harabim. So says the Gemara, that's Rav Eliezer. This used to be a chatzar, the wall fell down, now people started walking into it, has the din of Rishus Harabim. Says the Gemara, 1 second. Amy, is that true? Rav Gidl explained to Rav. It was only if there used to have been a road through a field, and then the public comes by and recreates that road. That's when it has a din of Rishus Harabim. But you can't just randomly walk through someone's field and decides Rishus Harabim. So in this case, when the wall falls, all of a sudden it's going to become Rishus Harabim. Says the Gemara, maybe you'll tell me, maybe the case was that there used to have been a road through this chatzar, and they're reclaiming that road. How could that be? Rav Chanina taught us that they're arguing until the place of the mechitza. Sounds like that they're arguing in the whole chatzar, not that there's just one little path through it. Says the Gemara, no, we'll fix that. They're arguing on the place of the mechitza, which over here you see this picture that on the makom of the mechitza, on that line. So the Gemara is making a kimta. The Gemara is saying that there used to be a path that ran right through that wall. Now that the wall fell down, the public reclaimed that path, and that's the reason why it has din of Rishus Harabim, according to Rav Eliezer. That is the first opinion, the first way of explaining the opinion of Rav Eliezer in the Mishnah. Says the Gemara, a second way of explaining. This is an old machlekes. How do we view the sides of Rishus Harabim? Perhaps this means sidewalks, perhaps not. How do we view the sides of Rishus Harabim? Rav Eliezer savar, see the Rishus Harabim damu. But Eliezer says this is now the side of Rishus Harabim. The wall fell. Now the public could pull over a little bit on the right, so it's like Rishus Harabim. V'Rabban and Savri, and they argue. See the Rishus Harabim is lav Rishus Harabim damu, and that's why in the Mishnah the Chachamim held that it's like a din of a karmelis, because they held that these sides of Rishus Harabim don't get a full-fledged din of Rishus Harabim. So says the Gemara, beautiful machlekes. Why say this machlek is such a funny case? Why don't the Chachamim and Rav Elazar just argue what is the status of the sides of Shus Rabbim? Why are they arguing in a case of a chatzar where the wall falls down? Now the public walks through there. It's a funny way of saying the machlekes. Says the Gemara, if they argued in the case of a regular Siddur Shus Rabbim, the regular sides, I would think keep when do the Rabbanan argue and see that the sides of Shus Rabbim do not have a din of Shus Rabbim? That's only when there's those little impediments. We'll show a picture in a minute. Little pieces sticking out of the sides of Shus Rabbim, making it not so easy to travel there. That's why the Chachamim hold that it doesn't have a real din of Shus Rabbim. But if there are no chifufi, if there's no impediments on the side, I would say that they admit. I would say the Chachamim agree to Rav Eliezer, and he yes says the din of Shus Rabbim. Kamash Malon, they said the case in this type of way, specifically in a case where the wall falls, to show you that even though there's a bit of an impediment, it's not so easy to travel there. Still, the Chachamim hold it does not have a din of Shus Rabbim, and they do not admit to Rav Eliezer. Says the Gemara, kamar, but it says mitaycha from inside. Says the Gemara, Id damar Rabbana mitaycha, Amar Yuna mitaycha. Rav Eliezer also said the same word. Amar Rav Eliezer, Siddur Shus Rabbim, ve'umahadru le inu mitaycha. Hachi kamar le. I'm sorry, one more time. Amar Yunami mitaycha. V'Rabbanan Amar. V'Rabbanan Amar Rav Eliezer, Siddur Shus Rabbim, umahadru le inu mitaycha. This is what they mean. Are you not going to admit to me if you carry from there to Shus Rabbim? Are you not going to admit to me that it's potter? Why am Nishik Karmlis? You should admit to me in the regular sides of Shus Rabbim. Rav Eliezer says no. They're a different case. Let's just show some pictures to make this a little bit clearer. Concept that we really discussed in the beginning of the Masechta. Here we see the Kifufi. We see Chifufi actually. That when you're traveling through the street and you have these little things sticking off the side of the road, it makes it not so easy to travel. So to over here, that's why they argue specifically in this case of the wall, to show you that it's similar, that it's not so easy to travel, and they don't admit in such a case. Says the Mishnah, another Mishnah closing out this parak. You have a chatzar that the wall falls down, it's busted open to Shus Rabbim from two sides. Or a house, that two sides are open into Shus Rabbim. Or you have a mavli that the lechi, the vertical beam, or the kaira, the horizontal beam falls down. That Shabbos, you continue status quo. But however, next Shabbos, you gotta fix it. There Rav Yehuda. Rav Yosi, I marry mutar and laisa Shabbos, mutar and lasalavi. V'masur and laisa Shabbos. Then Ashur Nasalavai, which we'll see in the Gemara, is going to mean that Rav Yossi holds it's Aser. So again, Rav Yehuda is holding that it's going to be Mutter. Rav Yossi holds it's going to be Aser. Here is the basic picture of what's going on over here. You see that you have a chatzar and a wall falls down. This is already showing you what the Gemara is going to say. Excuse me, this is the basic picture that the wall falls down on Shabbos. So says the Gemara, but Mayaskinon, what is the case over here? If you're going to tell me that it's be'aser, that it has the din of a doorway, it's less than 10 amos. If one wall falls down, so what do you say? Great, it's another doorway, no problem. What's the big deal? You can't have two doorways in your chatzar? Just like over here, you have one doorway, so why don't we say that if you have another one on the other side, it'll also be a doorway? So why did the Mishnah say specifically that what's going on over here? Ella, so what are you going to answer me? Biyaser meyaser. That the case is that the wall fell down and it's more than 10 amis. We all know that the din of a Pesach, we saw yesterday's daf, is only until 10 amis. So even if on one side it opens up, it doesn't have a din of a Pesach. You lost your wall because it's more than 10 amis. This should sound familiar. We had this at the very beginning of the Masechta. Amarav, Leilam B'Aser, we're talking about 10 amis. Moving along to Sadi Dalam base. Ukigoyin, and what's the case? Shenifr Tzabekaren Zavis. The case is that it's busted open on the corner. The Pescha Bekaren Zavis, Loi Avdi Inchi. People do not make doorways on the corner, like you see over here. It's busted open 10 hours in the corner. And that is the reason it does not have the din, that does not have a status of a doorway, because you don't make a doorway in a corner. You want to make a doorway, you put it on either side. You don't make it on the corner. And then we said, and again, and that's the reason. Now, if we go back into the Mishnah for 1 second, Now we can understand that when the Mishnah said that when it's busted open mishtei ruchayself on two sides, and so too on the house, or in what's the halacha? It's a mutter on that Shabbos, but on the next Shabbos it's aser. Why is it aser l'asar lavai? The reason is because you lost your wall. You don't have your private property anymore. You don't have your chatzar because you lost your wall. As we said, like over here, you see that the corner is busted open. Let's continue. Sadi Dalam and the Beis moves along to the next part of the Mishnah, moves along to the case of bayis. It's busted open on two sides. The Gemara's going to have now the exact same shakavataria, the exact same give and take. What's the reason? Well, similar, I'm sorry. What's the reason on one side that we say it retains its status of a house, it does not lose it? Because we say if one wall falls, no problem, the roof comes down, imaginary walls, all is good. So say the same thing if two walls fall, the whole imaginary wall comes down. It came open on the corner. So, what, imaginary walls don't work in corners? And the roof is on a diagonal. This is a very important rule. Let's open up the picture over here. You see over here, this is P. Tikra. Someone asked in an email to explain all the different concepts. It's a bit difficult, but at least let's understand each Gemara in its place. P. Tikra Yair V'Saisim, whenever you have a flat edge, very flat edge, and you have a tzuras ha-pesach. That's similar to the pavilion we had the other day, when you have like these poles and you have the top. So you have a flat edge on top and you have two sides in the bottom. Then we say pi tikra yari v'seisem, the imaginary wall falls down in the middle. And here you say, says the Gemara, so if it's open on two sides, what halach l'moshe misinai? What halach l'moshe misinai can't work twice? Why not? Answers the Gemara, the case is that it's on the corner and the roof does not have an edge. We only say pi tikra like when you have over here, when your roof is a flat roof, flat edge, it'll come straight down. But when it's a slanted roof, then we do not say pi tikra. As you see over here, this is Rashi's pshat. There are those that argue. Say the Gemara, says the Gemara, that was Rav Mishmei de Rav. Ushmul Amar afilu b'yosem eser, that the Mishnah is talking about when it was even more than 10 amis. Iachi asked the Gemara, miruach achas nami. So on one side it also should be no good, because if it's more than 10 amis, then what's the halacha? That just we said a moment ago, it's no longer a Pesach. Says, let's look at Rashi for 1 second. Ushmol Amar, Mas Nisan afilu b'yeser me'eser, is even more than 10 amis. V'loy misni lei elu b'shtei ruchais converge vazel. V'achotzer kamahader Shmuel. Those are the important words I want everyone to see. Shmuel's going back right now. Why the Gemara brings this over here and doesn't bring it before? Good question. Shmuel's not talking about the case of the house. Shmuel's talking about the previous case of the Chatzar. Says Shmuel, really the case is that the wall was busted open more than 10 amis. If it's more than 10 amis, ask the Gemara, afilu miruach iyachi miruach achas nami. Even if it's on one side, it should not be good because you lost your mechitza. More than 10 amis is not a doorway. Says the Gemara, iyachi miruach achas nami misham bayis. The reason is, as you see in Rashi, misham bayis, deloy efshe beruach achas misham bitikar yarid v'saisem. Says the Gemara, bayis gufay tikshi. We should ask on the case of the house itself. Misham beruach achas damina bitikar yarid v'saisem. And this is why maybe it brings it over here. Why by the house on one side it's good? Why is it good on one side if you have this door wall that falls down? Because we have the imaginary wall that comes down. So say it on two walls. And furthermore, what's going on? Shmuel doesn't hold the pi tikra. But we learned this should sound familiar. We had this a few days ago. We keep on having recurring concepts. You have this pavilion in a valley. Rav Amar you're allowed to carry underneath, but there's no walls. Tikra, the imaginary walls come down. Ushmol Amar in metal because Shmuel does not hold the pi tikra. So Gemara wants to know what's going on over here. Shmuel came along and said even if it's over more than 10 amos, because it's similar to the house. But how does this work? You don't have pi tikra. The Shmuel does not agree. Says Allah l'moishmi Sinai. Answers the Gemara, haloi kasha. Ki lesle bidalid. Shmuel doesn't hold the pi tikra when it's on all four sides. Avol b'shalosh isa islay. Shmuel does agree that you can take pi tikra on 3 sides. He just doesn't let the whole area becoming a rishus through 4 pi tikras, as you see Rashi, kilas leba arba, b'makim shesarich lasleis ba'arba mechitzas b'stima pi tikra yari v'seis and komach sadra. In the case of the pavilion, you have no walls at all, so all 4 sides have to come down. Shmuel says, no way, that can't be. But once you have one wall, then he yes allows it. Says the Gemara, okay, we call makim kasha. K'nami be'ram mishmei derag, k'nchiniver's b'karen's obvious. Like we said before, the case is going to be where it's open up on the corner, b'kiryav, ba'alachsan, and the roof is on diagonal. So at the end of the day, Shmuel's going to explain the case in the Mishnah Gemara the same way as Rav. So over here, Shmuel's going to extend it. And Shmuel's going to say in the case of the Chatzar, it's also on a corner. But Vikiryav Ba'arba, and it's going to be 4 tfachim away, and that is going to be the reason why you don't say Pitikra. Let's just read the Gemara and then we'll show a picture. Shmuel loy Amar Karav. Why? Allah sayin loy Katani. Shmuel did not want to say the case of the Mishnah was that it's on a corner and the roof is on a slant. Shmuel said that's not true. The Mishnah didn't say Allah sayin. So Shmuel's going to say that the case of the house is not a slanted roof, a flat roof. We'll show a picture in a minute, but it's going to be more than 4 tfachim away, and that's the reason why you're not going to have Pitikra. Rav lo Amar Kishmuel. Why? Because then it would be the same case of the achsadra as the pavilion. For Rav Tamei Damar achsadra mutal talta bekula. You're allowed to carry in the entire achsadra. The Gemara repeats the brayso one more time. The itmar achsadra big Rav mutal talta bekula. Shmuel Amar emetaltan ella bidalid Amos. And the Gemara explains, Rabba Mertalta Bekula Amrina Pitikra Visaisim, Ushmola Amar Imetaltan Balarba Amos, La Amrina Pitikra Yared Visaisim. So let's first, before we see one more line of Gemara, again, this was Rav. Rav said the case is the slanted roof. The Gemara went along and the Gemara said, this is Shmuel. Because Shnivers Bekaran Zavas, Vikirya of Bidalid. As you see over here, it goes inward 4 tfachim, and that's the reason why you're not going to be able to say Pitikra, you're not going to be able to close off this wall with imaginary walls because it's too far away from your original wall. Your walls that are there are 4 tfachim away from your imaginary walls, so it's not going to connect them. And this is again a similar picture that you see the same type of thing, that it's more than 4 tfachim away, and that's why it's not going to extend to the existing walls. To finish up, says the Gemara, the eser kuli amalei pligi ki pligi be yeser mi eser. The machlekes is going to be by more than 10 tfachim. You actually see here in Rashi a similar picture, as you see Rashi over here paints the same picture with the Dalet Fachim. That is the Machlekes Rav and Shmuel, and it comes out that they both basically agree the way to learn the Mishnah on the house is that the 2 walls fell. It doesn't merely mean 2 walls, it means 2 walls on a corner, so that's how you get 2 walls. Rav said it's 2 walls on a corner. Why don't you have Pitikra closing up those walls? Because the roof is on a slant. Shmuel says 2 walls on a corner. Why don't you have Pitikra? Because it's more than 4 Tfachim away. We'll pick up from here, conclude the parak, start the last parak tomorrow.